Siege of Baghdad. In the summer of 1401, the heart of the Islamic world trembled. Baghdad, once a dazzling beacon of knowledge and culture, stood in the path of a ruthless conqueror, Timur, also remembered in the West as Tamerlane. For 40 tense days, the city was encircled, suffocated, and finally crushed in one of history's most brutal sieges. Timur was no ordinary warlord. He was a master of calculated terror, blending classic Mongol battlefield tactics with psychological warfare so devastating that his enemies often surrendered before swords were even drawn. Baghdad, however, resisted. That defiance would prove catastrophic. The encirclement. The first stage of Timur's strategy was isolation. His army, tens of thousands strong, spread like a tightening noose around the city. Baghdad's defenders were cut off from all reinforcements and supplies. Caravans that once fed the bustling city were halted, its lifelines severed. Hunger began gnawing at the population within days, and morale started to crack even before the first clash at the walls. But this was no ordinary siege of attrition. Timur knew starvation alone would take too long. His genius lay in combining pressure from without with terror from within. He positioned his forces so no escape routes remained. Refugees who tried to flee were cut down in plain sight, their deaths serving as grim warnings to those still inside. The tactics of fear. Timur's army employed fear as a weapon just as effectively as steel. At night, the sky glowed red with the fires of burning villages outside Baghdad. Prisoners were paraded and executed before the city walls. Stories of past massacres, Samarkand, Isfahan, Delhi, preceded him like thunder before a storm. Defenders knew well what awaited them if they faltered. And yet, Baghdad resisted. The city still had proud traditions of defiance, and its walls, though aged, provided some hope. Catapults and archers rained missiles on advancing Timurid troops. For weeks, defenders repelled probing attacks, hoping Timur would lose interest and move on to easier prey. But Timur never moved on. His strategy was relentless pressure, breaking the spirit before breaking the walls. Engineering the fall. Timur unleashed his siege engines, massive trebuchets capable of hurling boulders to shatter defenses. Siege towers crept forward, shielding advancing soldiers. The assault was systematic: test the defenses, exploit weaknesses, retreat strategically, and strike again. One of Timur's most chilling tactics was the feigned retreat. His horsemen would simulate panic, luring Baghdad's defenders out beyond the gates. Once outside, the defenders found themselves trapped in ambushes, surrounded by cavalry that descended like a thunderclap. These small victories for Timur eroded the city's strength day by day. Breaking morale. Inside Baghdad, morale collapsed. Food grew scarce. Disease spread. Fear whispered in every corner. What if the walls failed? What if Timur broke through? Rumors of his infamous pyramids of skulls haunted the city. Many knew that surrender offered no safety. Resistance seemed equally doomed. The population was trapped in a vice of despair. The fall of Baghdad. After 40 days, the city could no longer endure. Timur's forces stormed through breaches in the walls. Resistance crumbled. What followed was not conquest, it was annihilation. Timur ordered a massacre. His chilling decree demanded that each soldier bring back at least one severed head. Thousands of terrified civilians were dragged into the streets, executed, and piled into grisly towers of skulls. Some accounts suggest prisoners and even family members were slaughtered when soldiers ran out of victims to meet their quota. The destruction was total. Only the mosques, madrasas, and a handful of religious buildings were spared. This selective preservation was part of Timur's psychological weaponry. By destroying the people, but sparing their monuments, he carved his power into stone while erasing the human life that once gave the city meaning. Strategy behind the slaughter. At first glance, such destruction seems senseless, but Timur's slaughter was strategic. It was not only about eliminating Baghdad's defenses, it was about sending a message across the Islamic world. To Timur, Baghdad's fate was a warning. Defiance would be met with extinction. The massacre served as a living deterrent, ensuring other cities would surrender rather than resist. Terror was not just a byproduct of war for Timur, it was policy, as integral to his campaigns as cavalry and steel. The aftermath. Baghdad never truly recovered. Once the jewel of the Abbasid Caliphate, its libraries, scholars, and markets were reduced to ash and silence. The city fell under new rulers, passed between Turkic dynasties, and though it remained inhabited, it never regained the brilliance that once made it the envy of the world. Timur moved on, leaving behind a shell of what had been one of civilization's greatest cities. For Timur, Baghdad was another stepping stone in a career of conquest that stretched from Central Asia to the Middle East and India. But for history, the Siege of 1401 remains one of the starkest examples of warfare as psychological theatre, a place where strategy was written not only in battle plans, but in the bones of the fallen. Thank you for watching. If you found this history gripping, please like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the strategies and battles that shaped our world.